Elmont, the beautiful Elmont Public Library. Before we begin, I am a deep and proud fan of this great country that we have, and I think we should begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you please stand up, would you pronounce the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just to keep we are recording the event tonight, and we can email you a link to the recording. We'll put it on YouTube. We're one of the first elected officials to put these workshops on YouTube so that you can do this from your home. So if you don't catch something here tonight, if you put your email address, we will send you the link to the footage from this proceeding. The camera's here, so just be conscious that the camera is live. Thank you very much for coming. Happy New Year. Thank you to everyone who participates in local government. I do believe that local government is more important than national government, although national government is always on TV and catching our attention. There are a couple of important events I wanted to bring to your attention. We have flyers in the front. We have the mammography van on February 24th here in Valley Stream. On Valley Stream we'll have it from 9 to 5. We have flyers. Please make a reservation. Very important. I'm 40 years old and I got my prostate checked out. Okay, and that's very important. It's very important in our community that we do that as well. And the health department of Nassau County is doing a great job trying to promote a lot of free screening and services. And there's in fact a health center right down the block that has a turnpike across from the racetrack that provides a lot of services that the county funds. In addition, we have a census job fair on February 8th. We have a census job fair, and I highly encourage you to attend that. In addition, that's going to be this Saturday from 11 to 1. And as you know, every 10 years the census does a count. It's a very important count that determines congressional appropriation and funding. It's very important that as many people as possible are counted, and they're hiring people from the community because they have shown in studies that when you hire people from the area, they're able to get a better and more accurate count. Furthermore, we have 2 to 3 more tax grievance workshops. I'm very happy that the deadline for the tax grievance has been extended to April 2nd.
Yeah, the town of Hempstead just put out a notice to everybody that it was extended to April 1, but April 2nd.
April Fools. And so we have additional workshops, tax grievance workshops on February 25th and February 27th in the evening in Valley Stream at Gateway Christian Center. Furthermore, there have been a number of accidents and fatalities on Elmont Industrial Way, and I'm very happy with the support of our county executive that we had a traffic study, and we are taking the suggestions and comments as to particular intersections that we want to change to make safer. For example, in front of Dutch Gate, the big senior citizen complex, we're going to put a traffic light there. Very dangerous for the seniors leaving that complex. And at various other portions of the road, we want to have a lane diet where we take away a lane, but we make the middle lane bigger for turning. Many other cities and other areas where we've seen an increase in the population density has had these programs to improve traffic. And the goal is not to stop traffic, but just to slow traffic, because the study shows that people are speeding at excessive rates on these streets. And I've seen many parents in the schools tell their children, please don't walk home, wait, I'll pick you up. And so it's very important that we improve our roads. You will be receiving the mail, and if you're in the legislative district, you will be receiving another notice about this. This is very important because I want to make sure that everyone has notice of this. We're going to improve that road and make it safer for our children and our youth. Okay? But I'm going to stop talking because I really want to hear from one of our great friends here to the Elmont community who has come time and time again throughout the year, multiple times, more than any other area in Nassau County. He likes coming to Elmont. And so I want to, everyone to give a good round of applause to Mr. Jeff Gold. And it's a two-person team. They're a great team together. I really appreciate you guys. Every year you come. I'm going to stop talking. I have to leave shortly. But without further ado, Mr. Jeff Gold. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I probably don't need this. I talk loud enough, so let me see if I can do this without it. If my voice fades and you can't hear it, just tell me. I'll grab the mic. I'd like to thank Leanna for coming in tonight. She was getting paid extra.
You're right, Leanna.
found that I can't operate the system as quickly as she can, and it's just, works better for everybody. I think most of you at least know something about me, but I'm actually a trial attorney, and I'm on trial. So I've been working like 80-hour weeks for the last 2 weeks, and my voice is starting to fade, and I'm tired, and I'm going to try to get as much done tonight as possible. I would really like to be out by 8:30 tonight. We'll try and get it through. Hold your questions then to the end. I'll take some questions. If you aren't in my Facebook group, you should join the group and ask your questions there. I know some of you are definitely in. I've seen some of you before. And it's a great resource, right?
Yes.
Okay. Who's in the Facebook group? All right, well, you don't need to be here then. Anyhow, so my name is Jeff Gold. I'm a former member of the Nassau County Board of Assessors during the last reassessment, and I'm a former assessment review commissioner. So I have a really good idea of how your taxes are set and how you can grieve your taxes. I've been on both sides of that. I'm also an attorney in private practice. My firm does flat rate tax grievances, but I'm not here to pitch the business. I'm just telling you that if you can't do it, you don't want to do it, we can do it. But if you're here, you followed signs to get here. You made rights, you made lefts, you followed directions, you drove your car, you took a train, you took a cab, you called an Uber. If you did any of those things, you could grieve your own taxes, a tax assessment. It's really simple. The county has made this so friendly. And for the first time in years, last year was the first time in years, but for the first time in years, the numbers are the numbers. If you're assessed, you got a letter in the mail last week with red writing on it. Okay, let's say it assesses you for $555. What?
$589.
Congratulations. Okay. If you're assessed for $589, you take number 1,000, you multiply it by that number, the county thinks your house is worth $589,000. It's not a hidden, numbers anymore. It isn't, you have to multiply by a factor. The county isn't treating people who file grievances differently than people who don't file grievances. Everybody is assessed using that same 1,000 factor. So that's, whatever your number was, if it's 400,000. If your number is 300, it's 300,000. Under the old system, people's houses were assessed at 300, as if it was a $300,000 house, and people thought that was great. What they didn't realize, the county really thought they were $400,000 houses. They just didn't tell you. Now we tell you, the county tells you exactly what they think your house would sell for, fair market value. Means if you sell your house to a stranger, that's what they think the county, the county thinks a stranger would buy your house for, fair market value. It used to be people who grieved, and you heard this, my house hasn't been grieved, I'm assessed a lot higher than everybody else. Well, that's what happened under the old system, because everybody who filed a grievance got a reduction. And you know what that does? Is everybody here from Elmont or other districts? Just shout out so I can hear where people are from. Franklin Square sees this, Baldwin sees this really badly. The whole South Shore has seen this. What happens is when everybody grieves and everybody gets a reduction, your school tax rates go up. Who got their tax bill in the last week or last month and said, look at my school tax bill, it just jumped. And that is because school tax rates went up because everybody got reductions. If this half of the room got 10% reductions on their assessment, the other half of the room has to make up, well actually the whole room has to make up that loss. So if you grieve your taxes on, reassessment was necessary to prevent that. There are school districts in Nassau County, picture this, school tax, 70% of your tax bill. So there are school districts in Nassau County that because so many people grieved and so many people got reductions, that the school tax rate went up 9.5%. They're paying almost 10% more in school tax. So if they were paying $8,000 in school tax, now they're paying $8,800. And if we did not reassess, and by we I mean the county did not reassess, you'd be doing that ad infinitum. Because you'd be seeing those increases every year. Montauk has seen it 3 or 4 years in a row. Okay, I'm partly at fault. I do a really big seminar in Montauk. We had 1,500 members in Montauk. So I know that my members in Montauk were getting reductions up until this past year. And the reason why is because for the first time, the rules were good last year. They're getting better. There's still some people over-assessed. We got to fix that. By we, I don't mean me. I mean the county. I mean you by filing grievances. But you have to take responsibility for your own actions. If you think you're over-assessed, you think that number in the mail that you got last week is too high, you got to file a grievance. Last year, under the new reassessment, I don't think 30% of the people got reductions. And a lot of them didn't get big reductions. We don't have the numbers, they're not out yet, but based on what my clients are doing, what other firms' clients are doing, what members of my group are showing, roughly 30% of the people got grievances, are getting reductions. Now, who's doing better? I've heard some of the firms are only getting about 10% reductions because they're not providing the information the county needs to give you a really good grievance. You know your house. You know your neighborhood. You know the streets around your neighborhood. You know what's inside your house. You can file a really strong individualized grievance, and I think that's the best way to get a reduction of your assessment. So what I'm going to show you today is how do we file a tax assessment grievance. And we file good grievances. I know some of you have been to my seminars for 4 years, pretty much 3-4 years. I'm looking at you, okay? So I used to tell you, you didn't need good comparables, okay, right? I tell you to use the rattiest house on your street or your neighborhood as your comparable that has sold. I tell you, if there's a tree growing through it, use it. If there's, 40 families living there with, outdoors on it, use it. There was nobody there checking your grievance. You filed, and you had a 90% chance of getting a reduction. So all you need to do is fool a computer. You just had to get something in and ask for as ridiculously low assessment as possible. Now, at the time, the Assessment Review Commission had 5 appraisers to look at residential properties. 5. You know how many there are now? 63. So people are going back to work. Qualified appraisers have actually accepted the county's offer, and they are now, county employees who are going to know the neighborhoods. They're going to know North Valley Stream, South Valley Stream, Elmont, Baldwin, Freeport. It used to be, I said, use a house 2 miles away. It didn't matter. Because as long as we could show comparable, that they were close in size, you had a chance of fooling the computer. Now, you can't fool the appraisers. If you use a house, there's a ton of sales. We got realtors here? Any realtors? There are a ton of sales all throughout the neighborhoods that people shouted out. Franklin Square, hottest market in the county. Okay? Right there with Valley Street, also very hot. Houses that were selling 2 years ago for $350,000 are legitimately selling for $500,000. Huge increases, 2-3 years. All right. So people are calling the office saying, "I paid $350, in 2016, and they've got me at $510," and I'm like, "Congratulations! That $510's a real number." And the way you have to get down past that is, yes, you can still use your own sale from 2017. But you have to show that you didn't just get a good deal and there was appreciation. You got to show that there are other homes in the neighborhood like yours that have sold for less more recently than that. And I've had people in Valley Stream call me up and they're like, "I have a little cape and they've got me down at $500,000. And I say, "Well, go look at this house 3 blocks away from you because, on Hungry Harbor Road, Hungry Harbor, that's your district, right?" Yeah. So there are little capes on Hungry Harbor Road, right around the corner from where my girlfriend/wife grew up, that, these were small houses on a busy street. And I checked because I saw one was sold, 3 days later it was sold for $475,000. It's a 1,200 square foot cape. Those are the comparables that you're looking at. Additionally, I'm not going to have time tonight to talk about whether the tax assessment is going to phase in. Okay? Because we don't know. Because the legislature, not Carrier, is holding it up. So we don't know if those of you who are going up, if you're getting that increase phased in over 5 years, and we don't know those of you getting reductions. We don't know if that's going to be phased in. So, if you're getting a reduction, don't buy your tickets to Disney World yet. And if you're getting an increase, don't jump yet. It might be phased in, we don't know. I do know from talking to realtors, because I do this session at in front of groups of realtors to help them advise their clients better, that the market has really been hurt. That there are people who will not buy houses until they know what the taxes are going to be next year. It makes sense. And we can't tell people what the taxes are going to be next year. One, the rates aren't out. But we can't even really guess at it because the biggest difference is the taxpayer protection plan. Whether it phases in or out is a 20% difference in taxes. For some people trying to get into a house, especially people getting into their first house, that 20% is the difference between buying the house. So they're hurting the real estate market, which is still incredibly strong, and people aren't able to budget. So I support the phase-in for 5 years. Why do I support the phase-in? Does everybody understand what happens if you're phasing up, if you're going to be paying more with your new assessment?
Instead of getting hit in 1 year, you have 5 years for it to gradually reach that
small
point.
Increases each year. And the same, because assessment is a zero-sum game, the county doesn't collect more money. If someone isn't paying the full amount of their assessed value, then somebody who would be phasing down is going to be hit with a higher tax rate. Everybody's going to be hit with a higher tax rate, but that's the way it works. But we want a stable real estate market. I mean, everybody here, that's the biggest investment. So the last thing you want, and it could happen in certain communities, I don't know necessarily this one, because I do think a lot of people have a lot of equity here that they didn't know they had. But there are certain communities where, and groups, like I think seniors, that if they see a $2,000 increase coming, that's going to hurt. That's going to force them, in some cases, to make life-changing decisions. I want to see that decision made with full knowledge of what your assessed value is going to be, what the tax rates are going to be, how the schools are going to adjust to the tax rates. So I think the phase-in gives people time to adjust, both the phase-in and the phase-down. The assessment rolls weren't made inaccurate in a year. They've been fixed pretty much in a year. They've been the best they've been in years. They're getting better. And they'll be fixed over another couple of years. See, what happens is, let's say this half of the room grieves. And let's say you all live in the same community in, whatever town, Elmont's fine. So let's say this half of the community grieves and shows the Assessment Review Commission that you guys are paying too much, that the assessor and the assessor's program screwed up, and Elmont is assessed too high. Well, what a qualified assessor does is he sees that there have been a lot of successful grievances in this area, and he looks at the other houses in the neighborhood where you guys didn't grieve because you thought you were fairly assessed, and he makes the adjustment of your homes down. This has been really big in certain communities like Seacliff, where there have been a ton of residents who filed terrific grievances. And I work with these people, and the problem is there are some houses that you think, because of their address, have terrific views of the bay. But they don't, because the house is on a steep cliff. So even from the top floors, they don't see the bay. When these people grieve and win, it resulted in reductions for their neighbors, people who clearly down the hill don't have that same type of view. So that's what a qualified assessor does. First time in years we've had a qualified assessor. First time in years the rolls were statutorily accurate according to the Office of Court Administration, which is a state agency. And yet the legislature, not Carrier, wants to do due diligence on why on the rolls before it decides whether we should have the phase in or phase out. There's a petition in my group, Nassau Grieve Your Tax Assessment Free. I know some people have signed it, but there's a petition that I've circulated asking that they vote. And we've got about 5,000 signatures. I have to get that over to the legislature. But if you join the group, keep going. It's in the announcements. Just click on the announcements. Okay. It's really an important thing to let them know vote. We're not telling them to vote up or down, yes or no. We're saying vote, because not voting means I can't budget. If I have to come up with an extra $1,000, I want to know I have to come up with that $1,000. And if I'm going to have extra money in my pocket for Christmas this year, I want to know that I'm going to have that extra money. It's fairness. but all they're doing and your colleagues are jerking around everybody in Nassau County. Now,
One thing I would like to emphasize, and I won't interrupt anymore, because Steve has the full control of this issue, is that the most important part, in my opinion, of this application that you're about to fill out is Part B, okay? Now that there are people who are actually looking at these applications for a grievance, it's very important that you, in Part B, put specific information about your home, that factors that you believe have caused the devaluation.
is that your home?
No, not at all. And so, for example, if there's increased traffic on your street because, the main road has a red light camera and people just take a shortcut through your neighborhood, that's important, and you should note that. Or if there's a new gasoline station that opened up around the corner.
You're saying Part D, right?
B is in boy. I
Part B
apologize.
is your value, Part D is the other fact section, where we're going to deal with
Yeah,
it.
so Part B is in boy and D as well. But I just want to emphasize that point, just so you could really understand what you're doing here, okay? The county believes that your property is valued at one value, and you believe on a good faith basis that your property is another value. And so you are bringing forward to the county's attention why you believe your value is this value, and you can state the reasons. So,
And that's
thank you
right.
very much.
And that's what we're going to cover today, and we're going to cover it relatively quickly because we can, because it's easy. There's nothing hidden about this process anymore. Anyhow, that's the petition. We have about 5,000 signatures. We're just asking the county legislature to vote. Don't talk about this. Just, talk about it, but don't hold up the vote because you don't trust the numbers. The state has certified the numbers. There's nothing more that can be done for due diligence. Now, if you're a member of the group, it's Nassau Grieve Your Tax Assessment. I tell you to join the group on Facebook because all your questions are answered. I've done announcements, I've done files. I'm on the site, 10 hours a day, except when I'm on trial. We have other administrators who are on the site who are very knowledgeable, and they'll just answer your questions. So you don't want to ask a question today, go to the site, post it. There's no bad questions. The only bad question is, where do I start? The reason we ask you, not where do I start, is because when scroll up, the first post in the group is called the pinned announcement, the pinned post. It's right here. This is the pinned announcement. Read it before posting. The grievance period starts Thursday, January 2nd. Now, important updated rules for the group. Frequently asked questions. All members must read every year. Deadline, now, 4/2/2020. That deadline now, 4/2/2020, is asked 5 times a day. I've been updating, okay? Until last week, it was 3/1. Now it's 4/2. It's right there. So if you ask me, where do you start? That means you haven't read the pinned post. And the pinned post does everything you need. It gives you the links on how to register. Now, if you're not on Facebook, okay, you can file a grievance even if you don't have access to the internet. All right, is there anybody who's going to file on paper? Okay, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to put your home in there. We're going to give you all your comparables. All right, and we'll show you how to file, and you're going to file on paper, but filing on the over the internet's very easy. Okay, and the reason I say that is, they give you the comparables. I'll teach you how to get other comparables. What's a comparable? A comparable is your home in your neighborhood that is sold. Okay? Now it has to be a home that is like yours in your neighborhood that is sold. It doesn't have to be exactly like yours, but if you live in a 4-bedroom, 2,000 square foot colonial, it used to be you could compare yourself to a 750 square foot 1-bedroom bungalow. Well, now you can't, because there's somebody reading your application who understands what real estate is. And we didn't have that for years. So this is where you start. You scroll down, and you can get there right from the Nassau County page as well. NassauCounty.gov, Park Web Citizen. It brings you to this page. Big announcement right at the top. Laura Curran has extended the grievance period. Okay? And first thing you want to do is you're going to have to register. Okay? If you've registered in the past, you're registered now. If you've registered now, if you're a new registration, they require some extra information from you than they have in the past. So it's real simple. Remember I told you made lefts, rights, followed signs to get here? Name, address, city, zip code, address. If you don't know your address, ask your neighbor. ARC is now offering the option of receiving electronic or paper notifications for offers and determinations. If you haven't logged on in a period of time now, it's going to ask you every time you log on if you want electronic notifications, which is email, or paper notifications. Now, this is a personal preference. If you like email and you trust email, then by all means get email. Very few people have not received their notice when it's sent by regular mail. Email, in my opinion, and my clients don't get it by emails, we sign everybody up for paper, is a little dangerous. And the reason I say that is, I'm on trial right now. I have, what do you think, 350 emails that I have to respond to? Okay, I hope nobody needs me this week because I'm too focused. All right, so I get 300 emails at, maybe 100, 150 emails a day. My spam folder gets 20 to 30 emails a day. I don't always remember to go into my spam folder and see whether something went there by accident. So my wife cleans her spam folder and her email once a month. She's just not, she doesn't get anything important by email. She gets some, coupons and offers. She doesn't use it for serious communication. She's going to get 1,000 emails. You get an email from ARC, the Assessment Review Commission, there's a pretty good chance it might go to spam. There's also a pretty good chance you're not going to see it. Also, if you use your work email, what happens if you change jobs? Okay? I mean, I had clients, not even when I changed jobs the last time, which was 20-something years ago, well, not 20, it was maybe 15 years ago, they wouldn't give out my phone number. You think they're going to transfer your email from ARC to you? No. Your email's going to be dead, so you're not going to get notified. And, there are times where, you have other things to think about than updating your information with the Assessment Review Commission. God forbid there's a death of a spouse and the spouse is receiving the notice to their email. Are you going to think to call the Assessment Review Commission and say, change my notice? No. You lose your job and you're scurrying around looking for another job. Are you going to think to call the Assessment Review Commission? No. Now, if you do, you can always go online, log in, and change your registration information, which includes changing your email address. And if you want to get email notifications, you can always check online to see if you're getting email notifications. But I think you're so much better getting paper. The county doesn't want you getting paper. It costs the county a lot more money getting paper. But you know what? They screwed us for so long, we can go forward. Okay? I mean, seriously, I can't even imagine. I mean, Carrie's gone, right? So I won't make him blush, but Carrie twice a year runs a session with Dan for underprivileged seniors, okay, who have no idea how to grieve their assessments, had never grieved their assessments before, so many of them were paying way more than they should have for their houses. And, well, I mean, Carrie runs it, but Leanna, my son, and I do the entries and the data entry for them. A lot of these seniors give us their children's emails addresses. They give us an email address that we've set up right then and there. They don't really use their email address. So the county initially wanted to only give emails, and we said that you can't do that. Carrie fought for that because it was wrong. 150 grievances that we did last year, right, Dan? About, yeah. Okay. So at least 150 people, 100 of them would not have received their notices if the requirement had, been changed so that they did not get automatic written notice. And now everybody has your choice, and I leave it to you which one you want. My preference is I want mine in the mail. Okay, I can still go online and check it electronically online, but I want to get my notice in the mail. All right, so you enter a user ID. It doesn't have to be fancy, and you enter a password. And I used to tell you that it doesn't have to be fancy because no one's breaking into Grieve your taxes assessment, and nobody's doing that. But now it has to be a little fancier. What is it?
Uppercase, lowercase, digits long, and number.
Okay, so you now have to use one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, at least one number, and it has to be 8 digits long. So, goal 1, 2, 3, 4. I got it. That was easy. Okay? Your address. All right? You can do that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be difficult, but it does have to follow their system. You're old. If you previously registered, you don't have to change your code because I know I can.
User ID, is that your name?
You can use your name. You can use your address. Like I said, if you previously registered under an old number, they don't make you redo it. Okay. So, once you do that, you hit complete registration. Dan, do you have an email address? No, you do? You want us to do your tax grievance stuff? Okay, we'll show you how to do it? All right, I'm up here, talk to Leanne. We're gonna register you. Do you mind?
We have it. We glad.
You have your tax, one tax form with you, you give it to Leanne, she'll get most of the information right off it. All right, nobody's gonna send this woman, nasty letters because her address is going on. She's doing us a favor by, putting her name out there, and, you're not gonna know her passcode because we're gonna make that up for her. And while this is being done, I'll sing and dance. All right. Anybody got a quick question, something we've covered so far? This is great. Yes. Yes.
That matter.
100%. The school district is one of the most important things that you need to put into your tax agreements. You need to stay in your school district. Okay? Now, I used to tell people it didn't matter as much, but it was always important. Now, if you're in a neighborhood where 2 blocks away or a block away is a different school district, you really need to stay in your school district because that's the biggest differentiation of value. It's kind of fun. I know somebody who lives in Hicksville, and you know there are 3 blocks in Hicksville that feed into the Syosset School District. So they pay Hicksville taxes for the lowest, which are the lowest in the county, among the lowest, and their kids go to Syosset. I mean, they have to compare their house, though, to the Syosset School District. That's more important than being in Hicksville. And, the houses do sell at a premium, but the guy was smart. When he did this 20 years ago, nobody realized that. Right? Yes?
I live in Franklin Square, which is school 2 blocks away to Valley Street.
Are you in the Valley Street School District or Franklin Square? Valley Street.
Valley Street.
Okay, well, you
So
want
they
to...
come to Valley Street or Franklin Square?
You want to try to find comps from the Franklin Square area that feeds into Valley Stream. It's actually a pretty big area. So it's not like you're stuck with 2 blocks, you're stuck with maybe 30 blocks.
So do I choose my comps for where I live, which is Franklin Square?
Yes, you choose your comps for Franklin Square, and the first comps you want are for those going into the same school district. Now, it used to be that would get past the assessors, and they would know, and they let you compare yourself anyway. But now these people, they're going to know. And I think it may work in your advantage, So try that first. In fact, those may be the comps that come out. Those should be the comps that come out. Right? Yes, ma'am?
How far from our home speed for the conference?
What?
Like, for example, I live in Walden Harbor.
Right.
But so I'm just, the school district is Walden, but there's also.
Yeah, you got to stick. You need to stick south of Mercury. All right.
South of Walden.
Yes. I mean, you don't have to be deep in the harbor, as deep as you are, but typically, if you can find comparables within a half a mile, and you can do that without ignoring comparables that are right around the block, then you can go a half a mile. If you don't have comparables within half a mile, you can go a mile. But most of you have comparables that are within 3 or 4 blocks. Now, we're going to talk in a minute about how to do comparables. The county gives you a way to check comparables. I do that, but you know what else I do? Is I also put in my street. So, for example, if you live in Walden Harbor on Bertha Drive. Oh, look at that. Okay. There's some challenges on Bertha Drive. Just because the houses at one point were $1 million and they're not selling that. So but you've got a lot of sales to show that on Bertha. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to put in, sold properties into Google. Sold properties on Bertha Drive and Bolton. And you will see dozens of multiple listing service sales that have happened over the last few years in your neighborhood. And then you can pick and choose the ones that you seem to think are most likely. And you can add those manually to the county program. Obviously, if you're doing it on paper, you can add them on paper too. But that's what I do, is like when I lived on Bell Road in Belmore, I don't live there anymore, I would do sold properties on Bell Road. And I kind of knew what houses were going for, because there was only a couple houses a year that would go for sale. But you would find those houses. And then I'd say, well, where are houses also like the houses on Bell Road, small colonials? And I'd say on Lydia Lane. So I would then say sold properties on Lydia Lane. And opening up more houses, so I find more comparables that I can use.
Well,
And-
doesn't it trust that stuff on Google, or what about Zillow?
Zillow, you see, the problem about Zillow is they list sales that are foreclosures without telling you that they're foreclosures. And they list short sales without telling you they're short sales. So I prefer houses that have actually been on multiple listings at some point. Also, when a house is on multiple listing service, it actually works really well because you can see the house has been on the market for 6 months or 8 months, and that gives you an idea of how fair the price is. Friends of mine just sold their house in Fort Washington, and it was on the market for 3 days. And I had done their grievance, and I thought, they were high, but not super high. They ended up selling their house for $200,000 less than they were assessed for. And they were real happy about selling, even though they weren't making a profit because they bought in 2006. But I said, if you waited 6 months, if you waited to spring, you would have gotten a better price. And when this house, there's going to be some question in the assessor's mind whether this buyer of this house paid fair market value. Sure, the seller was willing to take it, but the house was snapped up. If the house is on, MISL, multiple listing service, or major into the soccer league, no, multiple listing service. Okay, and it's on multiple listing service for 3-4 months, there's a presumption that that's a legitimate arm's length sale. Shorter than that, there might be a question. Arm's length sale is what you would sell your house to for a stranger. You're not giving your kid a discount. The house is, there's no fire that you have to deal with, or there's no foreclosure, there's no short sale. It's like you list your house with a realtor. Okay? Now, and that's something else you have to be careful about. Like with my friends, they were happy to get the money they got on their house because it's got them into their new place in Florida, and they're leaving us. But it's a lot easier for a realtor to sell a house for $200,000 less than it's worth and sells really quick. So that's why you want to, if you can find fair market value homes that are on multiple listing, you kind of want to find a home that's been on 3 or 4 months because that's sort of self-vetting. You guys done yet? Okay.
Get in there.
There you go. No, Valentine's. Good time. It's February. Perfect. All right. So that's how, when we talk about comps, use the county system first. But if you don't find good comparables, Google your street, sold properties on your street. Google your neighboring street. Google the next neighboring street. In my area, Belmore, there were about 250 to 300 homes in my old house that were built in 1968. They were all pretty much the same style. Some may have an extra room, but that's really an easy adjustment. And so I know where those houses are. If you live in Valley Stream, you know what houses were built at roughly the same time as yours on the streets around you. Elmont, Elmont's a lot of older houses. You want to make sure that if you have an older house, that you're being compared to older houses. Okay, so what do you do after you register? Ordinarily, I tell you at that point, you take a break and you shut your browser down because the system always worked better when you would shut it down. It clears out the memory. It actually works a little faster, but we don't have to do that tonight because we have to clean the computer. So the next thing you do after registering is you go to this Nassau County NY ARC Citizen. You can also go to Nassau County Assessment Review page right here, or Arrow Home. No, you go to NassauCountyNY.gov. You go to e-services. You go to Assessment Review, Arrow, right there. And that brings you to the same page, okay? I'd rather you be in the group and use the links in the group. It's just, that way I know how you get to the page you get to. All right? Don't worry, I don't sell your information. Who would want it? but we do have 27,000, almost 28,000 members. So it's a pretty nice community. People are really helpful. Today, somebody started my day off, and I'm getting ready for trial. Where do I start? How do I grieve? And somebody was like quick to say, I'm saving you. Go here. Okay? All right? And don't read the comments for the rest of the day. But I've actually gotten better because, God forbid something happened to me, my wife would need somebody like me to walk them through the process. So we really do try to give a lot of help on the site. Very rarely are we snarky. I've contained the snarky. All right,
Just
so,
after the 10th time.
excuse me?
Just after the same question.
Yeah, they ask the same question. So we go to property search, and you put in your address. You gave your address to Leanna, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Leanna's going to put in your address. You don't have to put in, the town. Usually, if you put in your number and the street, we're going to find it. If you can't find it by that, sometimes the county misspells the name of your street. We have a problem like that in Belmore with St. Mark's. Sometimes it's St. Marks. Sometimes it's St. period Marks. Sometimes it's St. S-A-I-N-T Marks. Sometimes I've even seen one M-A-R-X, which I have no idea where they got that one. Okay, so what I tell people to do then, under those circumstances, to put in the number and put in the city and zip code, and all of the houses will, with that number, will come up within that zip code. So if you're 1 Columbus Avenue, and they spell Columbus A-S, well, that'll come up and you'll be able to see that, is that your house? So that's the way I recommend it. It's probably only going to happen to 1 or 2% of you, but you can find it that way. Or sometimes the number's wrong. And then you can put in, your street, and all of the numbers will come up on that street. And maybe you can find your house that way. You can also use your section, block, and lot number, but the way the county gives them to you, they give it to you in 2, codes of 5 numbers, and obviously section, block, and lot are 3, so you don't always get the right numbers in. So I find that a little confusing, but you can use it as confirmation. All right. So once we know the property's up here, 1 Lara Avenue in Elmont, you click on parcel ID. And then the county asks you to put in a capture. And that's so people can't download and steal the county information. When the county did this back in 2002, they didn't put a capture in, and overnight 3 different firms downloaded all the county's information. Okay, so that's your home. It's a nice home. Used to look like that? It's nicer than that now. Yeah. And you filed permits, correct? So because you filed permits, somebody came out and inspected it. And that means they've added the value. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, because when you add value to your home and you pay more taxes, because of that, your assessment goes up, you pay more taxes. But the people who did improve their home, they actually get the benefit of a lower tax rate, because as you pay more, somebody else pays less. Now,
If it's not a commercial property.
well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about commercial property. But if you're telling me the house is now assessed at $591,
89.
well, no, they moved you up to $591 this year. Oh, $2,000. That actually means your taxes are going down. Okay? Because it's not necessarily going down, but comparatively going down. Because most people in Elmont got a 2 or 3 or 4% increase over from last year to this year. So you only got like a 0% increase from 589 to 591. So that's a really infinitesimal change. So other people are going to pay more, and you're going to pay relatively less. That's the reason you're all seeing new assessments last week. And before you jump off a bridge, going up 2 or 3% doesn't matter, because everybody's going up 2 or 3%. And you know why you're going up 2 or 3%? Because the assessor has determined that homes in your community went up 2 or 3% last year. Now they can only raise you 6% every year now, and they can only raise you 20% over every 5 years. So if our real estate market stays as robust as it is, we're going to fall behind even raising people up 6% a year. But the grievance, the papers you got last week aren't showing that your taxes are going up unless you were increased by 6%, and then you might. If you're 3-4%, everybody else is paying that, everybody else's assessment went up. Remember, more value comes into the school district and the tax rate goes down. So that's more value coming into your school district. Yes?
I got a reduction last year for $308,000 in Oceanside.
Right.
And then this year, our market value is the same as our house. So that's way more than.
Yeah, and they're going to end up
6%.
fixing, they're going to fix that. Okay, you can only go up 6% a year So last year you grieved 2021. This year you're grieving 21-22. 21-22 means that you don't see the effect in your tax bill until October 2021. All right?
What about on paperwork?
Okay, I think what happened is you didn't get a reduction for 2021, you got a reduction for 1920.
Right.
1920 was under the old system, the numbers were alive, and in a reassessment year, they can raise you up. So that has no effect. Additionally, this number right here, the .0010, that used to be .0025.
Right,
It
so
only-
they can't-
So you can't really equate from the two.
So they can raise it for
100%.
2021, all of that much?
Yes, because, but that, going up from 300, from 300, what were you, what?
Well, they had us.
I think I talked to you about it, but,
Yeah.
going up under the old system, if if under the old system you were assessed at 360, and under the new system you're assessed at 520, same thing, your taxes aren't going up. The old system was that inaccurate, it was 40 to 50% inaccurate. So people would see their valuations, and they would think, why should I grieve? They have my house at 360, but the 360 was a lie. It was basically done as a favor to the tax grievance firms, because everybody kept getting reductions every year, so the houses, the assessments kept going down for everybody that grieved. And that was really, it was great for the tax grievance firms, because, if all their clients are getting 6% reductions in their assessment, they're getting 3% of that. The problem is, and I actually was on Channel 2 News last week talking about this, is, well, the tax grievance firms are getting half, and you're seeing a reduction of, 3%, but then, well, your neighbors are seeing reductions, so your tax rate's going up. So people were being told by the grievance firms, we saved you $1,800 when they're really paying more money this year. And so I had to explain that. It's really, it's just numbers. It used to scare me, doesn't scare me now. Okay, so first thing you do, you make sure that's a picture of your house. Now in your case, it's not really a picture of the house now, but we're going to say it. You don't have to change the picture if the county has inaccurate information. There's a way to do it, but you don't have to. See over here, that's commercial property, right? So we're going to talk about the commercial property. All right, so, but actually, it looks to me like you got a handball court in the backyard. The wall of that commercial property. So, that is a selling point. I would have been a good realtor, right? All right, so, that is, they've assessed you at 591. Gut feeling with Elmont, you're probably pretty close. All right, but now we want to make sure they've got you as a one-family unit. You see that, one family? Sometimes people they used to have mother-daughters. They've taken out the old kitchen. If you've taken out the old kitchen on a mother-daughter, you might still be listed as a two-family. That's one of the few circumstances I would do where I would call the county and say, come back, come in my house. I'm a one-family. I want to be reassessed as a one-family, because two-family homes and mother-daughters that have the second kitchen are assessed as if they're income producing. They produce much higher comparables, much fewer comparables. So that's a big thing. I know a lot of people are wondering, they have me down for an extra fireplace, and should I call them in? They have me down for an extra bathroom. Should they call me in? Should I call in the Department of Assessment? My answer on most of these things is no. Okay? Give you an example. Let's say in Elmont, most of the South Shore, except for some of the real luxury communities, an extra bathroom will be assessed $20,000.